Well, we have a massive victory this week out of the state of New York after a conservative judge in Staten Island tossed the city's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for sanitation workers. In a decision made public on Tuesday, Staten Island Supreme Court Justice Ralph Porzio said that the order that was established in October of last year was arbitrary and capricious and violated states' rights. Porzio also noted that being vaccinated does not prevent an individual from contracting or transmitting COVID, despite what you were told by Fauci, Biden, Rachel Maddow, all the rest of the experts. The judge ruled that employees who were fired for refusing to bend a knee and get the jab, but be reinstated immediately with back pay from since they were fired. Meanwhile, President Biden was at the White House getting his, 20th, 30th, 40th COVID booster shot. When Fox News' Peter Doocy asked him if it was a mistake for New York to drop its vaccine mandate, here was his response.
Say again?
Do you think it's a mistake for New York to drop its vaccine mandate for private employers?
No, I don't think. That's a local judgment. Thank you.
Mr. President.
That's a local judgment. It's like he's already forgotten that he tried to mandate the vaccine on businesses across the country. Tens of millions of people. And now suddenly it's up to local judgment, right? Keep that in mind when you head to the polls in 2 weeks. It was the Republicans who shut down your businesses and fired you for not taking the vaccine. It was the Democrats. And they don't regret it. They would do it again if they could.
You've been an election denier, a climate change denier. You and Donald Trump were the masterful COVID deniers. We are dealing with a real crisis. And the more people get vaccinated, get those shots in arms, and I would do it all over again what I did last year, that mandate for healthcare workers.
After this decision was tossed out, Kathy Hochul, what'd she say? I'd do it again if I could. Criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi joins me now with a legal perspective on this and more. Bob, it's great to have you back on the show. New Yorkers are going to get a pretty sweet back pay check now that a New York judge has tossed out this decision to fire all of these people for not getting the Fauci ouchie. What can we expect after this ruling?
An appeal, which has already been filed. So the state of New York, yeah, right. I mean, this is what happens, and fair enough. I mean, listen, this issue has been batted around. The law on it has, with respect to the government being able to mandate vaccines, we've talked ad nauseum about it, is pretty much goes all the way back to smallpox and diseases before that. There's a lot of authority the government has. However, they have to do it in a way, and you use the words, and they are the legal terms, that are not arbitrary and capricious. And what this judge found was that essentially, okay, the health government can mandate certain things. But what this ruling did was it said that it was disparate in how it treated public workers as opposed to private individuals, making exceptions for athletes and performers and actors and things of that nature. And therefore, the judge found, as a matter of fact, that it was arbitrary and capricious. And of course, the state of New York is saying there was a legitimate governmental compelling interest, those are legal terms, and that it wasn't arbitrary and capricious. And so we're going to appeal the ruling, and we'll have to see where it goes from there, Addison.
Yeah, well, hopefully the appeal is unsuccessful and these New Yorkers get their earned pay, their earned due. Now, I want to switch gears, Bob. We actually have some pretty big news today on this afternoon. Darrell Brooks, the Waukesha parade killer, we've had you on plenty of times to talk about this ongoing trial. He, as of today, has been found guilty of 6 counts of intentional first-degree homicide. Now, Brooks tried making the case yesterday that him driving his car through the parade, which they've now ruled to be intentional, was simply an accident. Here's him trying to make that case.
Was in fact a class action lawsuit against Ford for those model vehicles.
Sustained, the jury will disregard.
Information that you should have been privy to, that you weren't allowed to be privy to. Why? I don't know.
Not a very convincing argument from Darrell Brooks, apparently, Bob. Your thoughts on this verdict?
Addison, I said this to you off camera when we were discussing this just a little bit. I've prosecuted and put people in jail for the rest of their natural lives, and you learn when you handle this kind of work not to take things personally. You do it professionally. I always used to say to my staff when I was the county prosecutor, we judge conduct, not people. That said, this guy is one of the most contemptible people that I have ever seen inside of a courtroom. And I hate to say that about any human being, but I mean, look, everybody makes bad, sometimes dramatic and horrible mistakes. But this guy is just something about him that you are rooting for as bad an experience as he can get in jail. He's contemptible, he's hateful, he's arrogant, he's disrespectful, he has zero remorse. I just think that it's not shocking that this happened the way it did. And I was reading a number of tweets, and I got to tell you, like, some were making comments that the judge needs to be given a trip to Maui to relax for a month. I mean, what he put the court through, the prosecutor, and the victims' families is really disgraceful. And he got what he deserved for sure, and probably deserves a lot more, but legally he got the maximum.
Well, and you talk about the contempt that you just have for this guy just by tuning in to these trials. I mean, he was stacking boxes and making a fort to hide from the judge, ripping his clothes off, smack talking, being extremely arrogant and disrespectful. And we're talking about 6 people here who died and multiple others who were wounded. Now we know that was all intentional. Obviously, he's going to appeal. This is going to be a long process before he receives his final sentencing. Where do you see the sentencing going, Bob? A little bit of forecast here. Do you think he'll get the maximum possible penalty?
Absolutely. He's going to get maximum consecutive sentences for every one of these victims. I mean, one of the things that judges will look at, obviously, is whether a person is remorseful, if they have insight into their conduct. But even if this wasn't Darrell Brooks, if this was somebody else, you're going to get consecutive life sentences here based on the gravity of the harm that was created and the death and carnage that was created. But when you add on to it the manner in which he acted in the courtroom, the judge, I'm sure, is going to be very careful, I predict, and not saying you were disrespectful to me. She may hit him with a number of contempt charges for the many things that he's done at the end of the case. But what I think she's going to do is basically talk about the way he treated the victims' families on the witness stand and the things that he said to those families and the things he said about his case that shows that he has absolutely no remorse. He said, quote unquote, my conscience is clean, he said to the jury. That does not bode well for any reduction. There will not be a reduction in any sentence here.
Yeah, and thank God for that. There's no amount of sentencing, amount of years spent in prison that could do this justice. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, that the death penalty is off the table. I think that would be the most accurate level of judgment we could give to someone this grotesque. Bob Bianchi from Law and Crime Network, always great to have you on the show, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Addison. Be well.
Coming up next, the Biden